Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Given to temptation, pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. Last night, as I was writing my blog and waiting for my video to premiere at midnight, I caught Black Male Advice TV, aka Ringo TV Raw's live stream where he presented the Kevin Samuels interview between himself and a 20-year-old man in its entirety. And I don't know what disgusted me more about this so-called interview. The fact that your Kevin Samuels inappropriately asked this 20-year-old man about his genitals, or the fact that he verbally abused this man during a so-called counseling session. Now, while many are in arms about this whole inappropriate question that he asked, and I will be getting into that later on, I am more disgusted about the so-called counseling session he gave this young man. Because as that call went on, I watched as this older man went out of his way to verbally abuse this young man over the course of 33 minutes, and all of the ways he was treating this man is not the way a licensed counselor or licensed psychotherapist would engage an individual. Because I have a family member who has a degree in counseling, and I myself have worked with the worst individuals, such as ex-offenders, drug addicts, single mothers, and many other types of people who were considered unemployable during my year at AmeriCorps Vista when I was working at the Strive East Harlem Employment Service. And yes, while we did show tough love to many of those individuals when we were working with them to get them job ready, we never went out of our way to verbally abuse an individual the way I saw Kevin Samuels attack this young brother over the course of that 33 minutes. Because that was the thing that disgusted me the most, was watching Kevin Samuels verbally abuse this young man for 33 minutes and just go out of his way to belittle this young man, devalue this young man, and just attack this young man. And all this young man was looking for was advice on how to get the attention of women. And your Kevin Samuels, instead of giving him that advice, what he did was go out of his way to attack this young man, try to break him down. And that is a tactic that unethical salespeople do when they're trying to sell you a product or a service. Because I remember a couple of years ago, I saw this ad online talking about this job was available, and I submitted my resume to this job. And what happened was I got an email back, and instead of telling me about when I should interview or where I could go to get this interview, what this person did was talk about there were problems with my resume, and they tried to verbally abuse me in the email, telling me that I was writing things wrong and that things were wrong with this resume. And then they tried to sell me a resume service for a certain price. Now, almost immediately, I caught on to the scam, and I could easily catch on to the scam that Kevin Samuels was trying to run on this young brother, because he knew that this boy was only 20 years old. He didn't know much about life. So what he wanted to do was use this unethical high-pressure sales tactic of breaking someone down in order to persuade them into buying his so-called services, and then use that as a gateway into getting money for himself. It is something that is extremely unethical and extremely egregious for an older man to do to a younger man, and it's something that just shows me how just completely greasy your Kevin Samuels is. So this snake oil salesman in a suit, when he sees one of our young brothers out here, one of our best and brightest brothers out here, instead of helping him deal with the problem he says he has, he goes out here and attacks our best and brightest brothers. So that shows me in that one interview that your Kevin Samuels is somebody who is an enemy to black men, because a black man, when he sees another brother out here, he's supposed to do what I do and try to help that brother out. Now, I'm not one of these so-called high-value men. I'm a guy who hasn't worked at a full-time job for some time, but I try to take what little knowledge that I have and I try to share it with these young brothers out here so that they can not only get that job and keep that job, I try to also give them advice so that they can look out for the pitfalls and enemies that they could find on a job, like in my blogs and in books like I do Stop Simping in the Workplace. And oftentimes when I have brothers coming to me on Facebook and they want to chat and messaging, I go out here and I would give these brothers advice for free. And I would also give brothers advice when they would send me an email, and I didn't even charge for that type of advice. And I do that because I want to see these young brothers out here get the success I wanted to have in my career, and I do that because I want to see them grow and thrive. But your Kevin Samuels, he does not want to see young brothers go out here growing and thriving. No, this guy, he's got this whole I got mine, F you mentality, and he's looking to screw over all of these other young brothers so he can be the so-called high value man, the so-called big wheel, and he wants to be able to roll over all of the other brothers out here, and he doesn't care about seeing them grow and thrive like I do. What he wants to do is see them be at the bottom of the world so he can be the top man. And that's another thing that disgusts me about your Kevin Samuels, is how he just is stuck on this whole, again, I got mine, F you mentality. And the way he attacked that young man, that just, it rubbed me the wrong way, because again, as a writer of men's issues, I want to see men be their best. That's why I make the videos. That's why I write the books like The Man Crisis. That's why I write the books like Stop Simping. I do that because I want to see these young brothers out here get that success and achieve that success. And I know that what he did in that so-called counseling session, that was some of the sickest stuff I have ever seen in my life, just to see a black man tear down another black man. I mean, I thought a white supremacist was standing right there as this was going on, because that's what a white supremacist would do to a black man, and it's also what one of these ratchet black females in HR would do to a black man, is tear that man down instead of going out of their way to give him proper guidance. Now, if I were sitting there with this young brother and I had him on a call, I would give him completely different advice. And as a guy who was 20 years old and went to college and was making those good grades like this young brother was, my advice to him would have been to focus on his education, because at 20 years old, yeah, you don't have anything right now. And I remember not having anything when I was 20 years old. And the way to move yourself ahead is to focus on your education and focus on improving your quality of life. That's what you have to focus on, because again, when I was 20 years old, I was at the top of my class and I graduated summa cum laude from my college, and that's what I was focusing on, getting those grades so that I could have something to show another employer out there that I was a hard worker, that I was a conscientious worker, that I always put my best in whatever work I was trying to do. That's what I was focused on. And as for the women, yeah, what's going to happen is you don't have a woman right now, and you may not get the attention of women right now, but it's all about you going out here and putting that work in yourself. Because when you're in your 20s, you're not going to be this big time success. You're going to be a guy working a low wage job. You're going to be in school. And yeah, the girls aren't really going to pay that much attention to you. But there are girls out there who will pay attention to you. And I remember when I was working at Food Emporium in about 96, 97, there was a girl looking at me, and she was a dark-skinned sister, and she was looking at me. And there are women looking at you, but you just have to know what signs to look for. And there are women all around you looking at you. I mean, there may be women on the college campus. There may be women around the school. And there are women all around you. And that's the way you have to change your perspective to understand this, that women are always looking at you. And all you have to do is know what nonverbal cues to look for, because women will let you know that they're interested with their body language, with their facial expression. And those things may be her giving you a smile, her giving you a look, and from there you just introduce yourself, and you'll see where things go. I mean, there's no lines and games. It's just straightforward. If a woman is interested, she will let you know with nonverbal cues. She will sometimes even let you know by coming up to you, but you just have to lay back and relax and let yourself be open. But as I see it, for this young brother at 20 years old, he shouldn't be too worried about getting a girl. He should be focused on his education, because once you get your education straight, then you can start focusing on building. And once you start focusing on building, then you can look for a quality woman and who will want to be your wife. So that this guy is in a very good place, but your Kevin Samuels wanted to cut this young man down and tell him he was worthless. But I could clearly see the value in this young brother. And as a guy, again, who was where he was, I know that there's a lot of potential for that young brother. Now, he may have been 5'10 and 350, but he had a lot of potential. I mean, he was going to school and he was doing well. He had a job. So he was on his way, but Kevin Samuels thought he wasn't good enough and tried to find a way to belittle him so he could sell him on his hustle and his gimmick. Now, I look at that, and again, I am deeply disgusted by what I saw, and I'm deeply disgusted because this black male was not looking out for this young black man. And he went out of his way to belittle this young man's decision to go to college, talking about he went to community college, talking about his major in finance. Well, I have a degree in business administration, and I can tell you that this brother is on the right track. This degree in finance will be able to help him, because this is not just about him getting a job. This is about him using the tools that he has to go out here and build a business. Because when you learn the basics of finance, you don't need to just work somewhere. You can go out here and start learning how to do your own investments with stocks. You can start learning how to do investment with bonds, and you can start learning how to build your own financial nest egg. And you can also start learning about how to take exams like the Series 7 and learn how to become a licensed stockbroker. You can start learning about tools and things to go out here and build your own business and become a higher value man than this high value fraud, Kevin Samuels. And when I look at this young brother and I looked at the advice this guy was giving him, that's the thing that really just made me so angry, was seeing him get this bad advice, being told that he was worthless, being told that he was nobody, being told that he was nothing. I mean, that's not something a man does to another black man. And this is not something I'm going to accept from your Kevin Samuels or anyone in your so-called black manosphere. No, your manosphere was allegedly supposed to be about building up another black man and helping another black man, but I didn't see anything there about helping another black man. All I saw was an old Negro tearing down another black man and destroying our black youth. And I'm not going to sit there and allow that to happen, because this is about a guy who just wants to tear down our young brothers and devalue our young brothers. And that's something we need to push back on as men, because this is just not what I'm going to deal with when it comes down to this con artist. Because he can go out here and run his gimmick, but when he starts tearing down young brothers, that's when I have to step in, and that's when I have to step in hard, because again, I have worked with the worst individuals. Again, I've worked with ex-offenders, I've worked with drug addicts, I've worked with former gang members when I was working at Strife, and I've seen those young men go out here and have good jobs and get their life back on track. And I've also worked with a lot of college-educated brothers when I was on Facebook and writing my blogs, and even when I make YouTube videos. Those brothers come to me and they send me messages asking me for career advice. They send me messages asking me about what they should do in their lives. And I also get emails from brothers out here, and they ask me what they should do in their lives and what they should do with their careers. And I have never gone out of my way to verbally abuse any of those individuals who have asked me for help or advice in any way, shape, or form, because I respect these brothers and I want to treat them like I would have wanted to be treated when I was 20 years old. And when I see him tearing that young brother down, that's the thing that disgusted me more than anything, because who is your Kevin Samuels to verbally abuse a 20-year-old man who was looking for help? You weren't helping that young man. You were trying to destroy that young man, and you were trying to attach an emotional hose to that young man so that you could have a codependent relationship where you could suck the money out of this young man. And that's one of the things that, again, disgusted me. He's going to sit there and do this, and many of these jock riders, they're pretty much complacent with this, and they have no problem watching another black man be torn down by this so-called black male, this high-value man who gets his value by belittling and degrading another black man. Again, no different than your white supremacist or your ratchet black female in HR. And this is perfectly fine for many of these so-called jock-riding black males who are a part of the manosphere. They have no problem elevating this man's value while watching him tear down one of our young brothers who is trying to do right. Now, the other part of this call that absolutely disgusted me was the fact that he went out of his way to ask this man about the size of his genitals. And when I looked at that, that was something that showed me that your Kevin Samuels is sexually suspect, because no heterosexual man is going to go out here and ask another man about the size of his genitals. Because if a man is looking to get counseling for and advice for his relationship with a woman or his interest in women, a heterosexual man is not going to ask that type of question. And the reason why he's not going to ask that type of question is because he knows if he asks that type of question, one, people are going to think he's sexually suspect, and two, he's going to get punched in the face, because that type of question right there, that's not something a heterosexual man asks another man, because if he asks that type of question, he knows he's going to catch a fist to the jaw. Because that question right there shows me that your Kevin Samuels isn't just a high-value fraud. He is one of these sexually suspect beta males, and that's probably why so many of these other beta males want to watch his channel on the regular, because they probably feel that feminine energy, and because they feel that feminine energy, that's what's attracting them to this effeminate man, who I believe, again, is sexually suspect, because no man asks no man no question like that. A man only answers that question when he's by himself with a woman. If he's with a woman and they are chopping it up intimately, she'll ask that question maybe jokingly, but ain't no man gonna ask no other man about his stuff, because, again, if he asks about that stuff, people are gonna think he's sexually suspect, and chances are you're gonna get the crap beat out of you if you start asking those kinds of questions. But in this so-called dysfunctional manosphere, which was supposed to be about men helping out other men, men uplifting other men, men building up other men, we see the same dysfunction that went on in your inner cities, where a lot of these guys were raised by these single mothers. And I see this dysfunction right here within the crumbling remains of this manosphere, because to allow this guy to come in here and have all of these guys riding his jock instead of calling him out shows us how weak the males are in your so-called black manosphere. Because if these males were men, they would have looked at that whole phone call where he verbally abused a young brother, and they would have called to arms against your Kevin Samuels and let him know, this is not how we treat a young man. No, we give a young man guidance and advice to build him up. We do not go out of our way to tear another black man down, because a black man already has enough enemies out here looking to tear him down. He already has to deal with the system of white supremacy. He has to deal with racist bosses, and he even has to deal with some of these females out here, especially some of these black females out here looking to go out here and try to destroy him. So he should have a safe place where he can feel free to be able to express himself, and he should be able to get guidance, advice, and support from a collective of black men. But instead of trying to go out here and support this young brother, your Kevin Samuels and your so-called manosphere believe it's okay to tear down another black man. And that's where I have an issue, and I have to step in, because this type of thing should not be allowed to go on. And it shows me again how compromised your so-called black manosphere is, that this sexually suspect Kevin Samuels can come in to the manosphere, and because these males are so weak, they allow this man to come in and practically not only take over the leadership of the so-called manosphere, but take control of the narrative of the black manosphere. That just shows me how weak these males are, and how they just have no masculinity, no backbone, no stones, no discipline or resolve, because only weak males can be easily led by a guy in a suit talking about high value, but goes out of his way to devalue other brothers out here. And they couldn't see the simple tells that I saw regarding your Kevin Samuels, because if you're such a high value man, why are you devaluing a young brother? And if your Kevin Samuels was such a big wheel with such a grand career, then why didn't he go out of his way to help that young brother by asking to be a reference for that brother as he looked for another job, or going out of his way to give this brother some career advice. That was another telling red flag to me that showed me how selfish your Kevin Samuels is. Here you see a 20-year-old young man going to college, trying to improve himself, and instead of giving that young black man some advice or even going out of your way to say, look, I know some people somewhere at a company, he decides to continue to tear that man down. That was a red flag to me about this dude who says he has this big-time, high-value career in corporate America where he received all these multiple promotions, because if you received all of these multiple promotions, you would have these connections and contacts, and you would be able to use those connections and contacts to help another brother. But it's clear to me that he's not what he says he is, because if he was what he says he was, he would again be able to have these contacts in the business world, and he would be able to use those contacts to get himself a better job, and he would be able to go out here and work at one of these corporate jobs making those six figures, and he would not be on YouTube hosting a live stream show. And that flies over the heads of many of your males in the manosphere. They'll sit there and swear up and down Kevin Samuels is legit. Kevin Samuels is one of the best out here. But when you start to peel back the layers of the onion, you start to see that there's something stinking about this dude. And when I look at this guy and I listen to the more of him talking, the more starts to fall out as related to the lies that he tells. Because when I listen to this guy talk, and he talks about, oh, I've got all of these promotions, I've come up in corporate America. Well, again, where are your contacts? Where are your references? Where are all of these people if you're such a big wheel and you've got this six-figure job? Why aren't you working at one of these companies making those six figures? Why are you on YouTube trying to get AdSense dollars? And why are you here making money by trying to exploit some young boy and trying to take advantage of him? That's a critical question I have to ask your high-value hustler, because I know that if you were making this kind of money and you had this kind of career, you're not going to be on YouTube talking to everyday average people and trying to get money from AdSense dollars and super chats. No, you're going to be one of these guys who has a deal with a radio station or one of these digital radio stations like Spotify, or you're going to have your own podcast, or you're going to have your own TV show in production. That's what a so-called well-connected, high-value man is going to have. He's going to have the platform to go out here and be able to reach a larger audience. He's not going to be on YouTube infiltrating a place like the manosphere and looking to change the narrative, because that's really what this agent is trying to do. This agent is trying to infiltrate a black space, and this agent is trying to change the narrative of that black space. And what he wants to do is gather a group of useful idiots out here and use those useful idiots towards pushing the agenda of his slave masters, who really want him to go out here and push whatever narrative they want pushed in the black sector of YouTube. And sadly, we have so many gullible, useful idiots out here falling for this game. And what they don't see is that this man is tearing down a young brother that was supposed to get the help from the manosphere, a brother who was just looking for advice on how to get a girl, and could have easily gotten that advice from a guy like me if he had contacted me on Facebook in a chat for free, or had sent me an email and gotten that for free. I mean, yes, some people do send me cash apps and donate to the Patreon to get that kind of advice, but I have given that advice for free for years on my blog. I have given it for free on places like your Facebook and places like that because I want to see young black men thrive. And it's clear to me Kevin Samuels doesn't want to see young black men thrive. He wants to build himself up by tearing other black men down, and he wants to build his base the same way your Oprah Winfrey built her base, emasculating and degrading black men. And again, he showed us not only how sexually suspect he was, he showed us how he was an enemy of the black man, and he was an enemy of building up strong black men. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my men's issues books that help brothers take their lives to the next level, like Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance, Stop Simping in the Workplace, The Misadventures of Captain Save-'em, and The Man Crisis, you can find all of those books on Amazon.com in Kindle format, and you can find most of them in paperback. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Those who refuse the gift of eternal life are condemned to wander in the